want that. Get away from us. Okay? And, you know, like we're in college, our show's called because I'm a college student. And people always ask me, oh, what's your major? I'm like, I'm an art student. They're like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, thanks, asshole. They're like, what are you going to do with that? I'm like, well, I don't know. And then they're like, what are you emphasizing? And I'm like, I'm a painting and drawing major. They're like, oh, so you're going to basically be a starving artist your whole life, right? I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you know, an arts degree, it does have some value if you think about it. Like, let's say you're in a bank, okay? And some guy comes in like, this is the stick up, like, get on the floor or whatever. And then everyone's like, oh my God. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna shoot a motherfucker if I don't get a self-portrait of myself. So then I'll be over here like, should I tell? Guess what? I'll pull out my arts degree from the first. I can paint and draw. I can paint you. So I'll paint him, I'll save the day, and then my arts degree will have value. It does have value. And you know, if that doesn't happen, there's always, you know, like the Ebola outbreaks happening, zombie apocalypse, we're gonna lose electricity. So I can use that for warmth and burn it. Or worse comes to worse, you know, in the bathroom, there's no toilet paper. You'll just add to the it'll give it more character. You can just call it like, I'll call it art. Just say I painted on it, nobody will know. And well, yeah, and then I guess it could also be a form of ID. You go to a club, you forget your ID, and I carry my arts degree in my purse. So I'll be like, hey, I didn't bring my ID, but like, look, painting and drawing. Maybe he'll let me know, because at that point I'll probably be starving. Like, but you know, like as an art student, I have to do research. And in the art world, there's a lot of nudity. It's normal in the art world to see nudity, like some ladies' boobs, like an ass or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm used to it. And so I was in the library at school doing my research, and I looked up this artist, he's super dirty. So I'm like, okay, he like paints people having sex and whatever. So I'm like, oh, whatever, this is cool, scrolling down. This guy comes over, he's like, I was like, wait, I'm not watching porn, that's not what it looks like, no. And then I'm like, okay, whatever, so I'm just like, shit, I have to study for my test, so I'm just scrolling down. Then this other girl comes over and I see her, I'm like, shit, should I click out the window? So she walks over, she's like, I hear her like, shit, I'm not watching porn. But okay, I'll just come out and say, I'm a girl and I watch porn. I think more girls should admit it, okay? If you don't admit it, you're a liar. But like, as an art student, the way I think is different. So when I'm watching porn, I'm not like, oh, this is hot. I'm like, oh, look at that painting in the background. Some nice Monet in the back. Look at the technique of that. Oh, my husband. But look at that painting. It's amazing. And then like, I don't notice, like, okay, it could be like super hot, the best porn in the world. But I'm over here like, oh, look at her nails. These are cute. Or her makeup is great. What who did her makeup? And it's like, okay, I'm like, whatever. And then there was one porn I watched, it ruined it. It does not do it for me anymore. I was watching it. I'm like, oh, this is hot, whatever. And then the girl started moaning. I'm like, oh. If I was a guy, I would have stopped. She like started moaning. You know who Fran Drescher is? Yeah. It was like, ah! I'm like, oh. Like, it just killed the mood. I was like, you know, I just showed my laptop. And, I mean, come on. If you're a girl, just don't watch porn. Because if you're going to find that lady, the Fran Drescher lady, it'll ruin it for you. If you find that video, it will. And, you know, I'm single or whatever, and I'm trying the whole Tinder thing. Kind of, yeah. So I give my number out to some guys on Tinder, and I'm like, okay, whatever, we're talking. And sometimes these guys take it a little too far, and they'll send me a picture of their dick, and I'm like, oh, okay, block. And I'm here like, okay, whatever. So I usually put a passcode on my phone for this reason, because I don't want anyone stumbling upon that. I mean, I don't want to see that, or maybe I do, but I'm not gonna admit that. And, like, I don't want anybody to like open my messages and like, oh look, oh ew. And then, so one day I forgot to lock my phone, and my dad's like, "Kevin, where are you going?" And my dad is a very angry Mexican gentleman. He's like a beard. He's scary. He's a truck driver. You can imagine this angry Mexican guy. And I'm like, okay, I'll let him bring it home. So I'm like, over here, like, shit. And then I checked my phone before, there was a little notification. It was from a guy on Tinder. I'm like, okay. I let him borrow my phone. And then he gives it back to me, and the little notification is gone. Oh. So I'm like, oh, fuck. So I'm like, shit. I'm like, So I opened the message, and right there is a boner. So I'm like, my dad did not make direct eye contact with me for a week. I was just like, shit, no, I'm sorry. And like with the online dating, like some guys are really bold, and they'll be like, hey, you want to hook up later? I'm like, okay. And then there's some like super disgusting people that are like, hey, you want to sit on my face? I'm like, okay. Maybe like online it's acceptable, but in real life you can't just go up to a girl and be like, are you shaved? Or you sit on my face? Like that's not appropriate, okay? It's kind of also how when you go clubbing and you're dancing, whatever, and there's some guy like in the background like, you're over here like, I mean, you turn around and he's still like, and then I keep dancing and I turn around and there he is again. I'm like, whatever. So I dance away, and then I walk over here and he like slinks out of the shadow like, hey girl. I'm like, hey, okay, Dracula over here. And in real life, you can't do that. Like out of the context of the club, it's not acceptable. You can't just slink out of the shadows like, hey girl, or like, mamacita, come here. You can't do that. So guys, you're really creepy. Don't even realize that. Like you can't, honestly, don't do that. It's weird. You can't buy somebody a drink. Like in the club, here's a drink. And you're like, oh, thank you. And then, like if you're out and some guy comes up like, will you drink this? Like, oh, drink that? Who are you? I don't know you. But in the club, it's like, hey, thank you for the drink. You get wasted. But it doesn't make sense to me. And you know, another thing with online is that there's some weirdos on there. And you know, have you heard of Plenty of Fish? I think that's actually called Plenty of Freaks. Well, I think that's all I have. Thank you.